Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak about a significant community group in my electorate of Moreton who have connections with Australia's 10th biggest export source and also a country that is where we are their 15th biggest trading partner, and I'm talking obviously about the country of Taiwan. I note recently that whilst there's been an increase in visitor arrivals to Brisbane recently, in fact a 7% jump in May compared to the year before, of that increase in visitor markets, the overall growth saw a Taiwanese increase of 46.7%, and that reflects the increasing significance of the Taiwanese community, both in my electorate of Moreton, where so many people with Taiwanese links and Taiwanese connections live, but also with Queensland and Sydney and Melbourne as well, and all around Australia. But the Taiwanese community have been arriving in increasing numbers. Many of them are going to work in the agricultural sector. Many of them are then spending time studying in Australia. We've got a significant number of Taiwanese students living in Brisbane at the moment, and other capitals as well. But the Taiwanese students are adventurous. They come here with a great spirit and interested in making sure that they have a good time in Australia. But sadly, some of them are being exploited by employers that are not considering the employment law in Australia and taking advantage of Taiwanese students. I have spoken to the Taiwanese community as much as I can, and to the Queensland and state governments about making sure that they understand employment law. I saw some reports on the 7:30 report last week about Taiwanese employees that were spending the entire day in a field picking fruit, and then because of the arrangements, the shared accommodation, where they were paying $120, $130 a night, a week, they ended up only receiving $5, $10, $15 for a day's worth of picking in a field. So there will always be people that are prepared to take advantage of travellers, and sadly Taiwanese students and travellers have been taken advantage of. But I particularly wanted to mention the Director General of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Brisbane, Mr Weng-Cheng, who has served the community of Brisbane and Queensland and Australia for nigh on 5 years. Mr Sung previously spent time in Poland and has spent 5 years in Brisbane, and has been an incredibly hard-working, loyal servant of the Taiwanese community and the Taiwanese travellers that have arrived in Queensland. Now, in that job, he is an incredibly quietly spoken gentleman, but a great intellect and a great servant of the Taiwanese community. In that job, he has worked well closely with the Taiwan Friendship Association of Queensland, ably chaired by the President Kota Chen, and also the former President Anthony Lin, who I have had a close relationship with. Also the Taiwanese Women's League of Queensland, the President Alice Shen, Jane Yu, Monica Su. I could go on a long list of the people that have loyally served the Taiwanese Women's League, people who step up every day, but particularly stepped up during the disastrous floods of 2011, where they were able to serve the broader Queensland community, particularly those people that were interested in going off and volunteering to help clean up after the disastrous Brisbane floods. I'd also like to mention some other good friends of mine, Henry Chen and Wayne Ko, the Commissioners of the Overseas Compatriots Affairs for the Republic of China, Taiwan. Henry and Wayne have been long-standing, hard-working, well-known, well-respected members of the Taiwanese community. Wayne is also the Secretary-General of the Queensland Federation of Taiwanese Associations, that do such great work in terms of making sure that the Taiwanese community is well connected with the people of Queensland. And the local Taiwan Centre, which is just near the McGregor Primary School, in one of the shopping centres owned by a very well-known Taiwanese family, the Fu family, own nearly 20 shopping centres throughout Queensland, and I think might have even ventured into New South Wales. But the Taiwan Centre is a centre that services the local community, not just the Taiwanese community. And I'd also mention the big team at the Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce that do so much to make sure that Australia's trade with Taiwan continues to improve. A trade of $11 billion, $11.346 billion in trade in the last financial year. Even though China is only a small country with 36,000 square kilometres, and under President Ma, they have done so much to make sure that they have strong connections with the region that they are connected with, so that there is strong employment opportunities, strong tourism opportunities, both with mainland China but also with the rest of Asia, particularly Queensland and Australia. Obviously, there are great opportunities there, not just for Queensland coal and the resources that come out of Queensland and Queensland tourism, but also I think great opportunities that were articulated in the Labor government's Asian Century white paper that shows we need to have closer connections with the Asian community and that surrounds us. And especially as the challenges arise in the next few years, as we have, I guess you could say, a remilitarisation in Japan, and the challenges that come with that, particularly for Australia with our connections with Japan, but also for China, which looks back 80 years ago and 70 years ago and looks at the horrors that were visited upon that nation. In fact, if you go back to Taiwan, you can see 100 years or so the problems that come with colonisation of any island, any nation. However, I particularly note and comment upon Australia's trade in services with Taiwan in 2013. We exported $704 million in services to Taiwan, and I think there are some great opportunities there, particularly as a way to both deal directly with the nation of Taiwan, but also with their neighbour of China, and see it's a great way to do business with China in terms of going through Taipei and Taiwan because of the connections that are there and the understanding of China. Obviously, we have a smaller population, but with those 24 million people who appreciate democracy, also have those great connections, not just language-wise through Mandarin, but also culturally because of those historical connections with Beijing and beyond. And in fact, I think at the recent Taiwanese elections, I think from memory there was about 1 million people arrived in Taiwan from China to vote, which is an interesting statement in and of itself in terms of the connections across the Taiwan Strait. I've enjoyed my visits to Taiwan during my time as the member for Moreton. 3 times I've visited that tiny, beautiful island in the Pacific Ocean, and I've been close to China. I've seen the battlements where once upon a time shells rained over on the island of Kinwan. I've seen in fact, I have knives in my house made from steel provided by Mao Zedong, because the shells that landed in Taiwan have then been forged into knives, which I have at my home, as well as, not to mention, the Kinman liquor. And I know that the people that come from that island are stout of heart and strong and independent. So as I mentioned earlier, I'd particularly like to thank again the Director General of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Brisbane, Mr. Weng-Cheng. Thank him for his service and wish him well in his endeavours when he returns to Taipei.